The Discovery. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the exploration vessel Horizon's Edge, watching the rust-colored planet grow larger on the main screen. Xerion 7 looked dead from space, just another barren world in the Outer Rim territories. But the long-range scanners had detected something unusual buried beneath the surface, something that had been waiting there for thousands of years. "Captain, we're picking up massive energy readings from the northern continent," reported Lieutenant Commander Alex Rivera from the tactical station. His dark eyes were focused on the sensor displays, fingers dancing across the controls. "Whatever's down there, it's big and it's old." Sarah nodded, her short black hair catching the bridge lights as she moved. At 42, she had led more deep space expeditions than any other captain in the Terran exploration fleet. She had seen wonders that most people could only dream about, but something about this planet made her uneasy. "Dr. Webb, what do you make of it?" Dr. Marcus Webb looked up from his archaeological scanner, excitement gleaming in his green eyes. The tall, thin scientist had spent his entire career studying dead civilizations, and this discovery could be the find of a lifetime. "The energy patterns suggest advanced technology, Captain. Far more advanced than anything we've encountered before. The structures appear to be at least 10,000 years old, possibly older." "Any signs of current activity?" Sarah asked, though she already suspected the answer. "Negative, Captain," Alex replied. "The planet appears completely lifeless. No atmosphere worth mentioning, no organic signatures, just those energy readings from the ruins." Sarah made her decision. "Prep the landing shuttle. We're going down to take a look. Alex, you're with me. Dr. Webb, bring your full archaeological kit. Zoe, I want you monitoring everything from here." Engineer Zoe Park looked up from her station near the back of the bridge. At 28, she was the youngest member of the senior crew, but her talent for solving impossible problems had earned her everyone's respect. Her curly red hair was tied back in a practical ponytail, and her coveralls bore the stains of countless repairs. "You got it, Captain. I'll keep the Edge ready for a quick exit if needed." 2 hours later, the landing party stood before structures that defied explanation. Massive spires twisted toward the dead sky, their surfaces covered in symbols that seemed to shift and change when viewed directly. The buildings were made from some kind of crystalline material that pulsed with inner light, creating patterns that hurt to look at for too long. "Incredible," Dr. Webb whispered, running his scanners over the nearest wall. "The craftsmanship is beyond anything in our databases. Look at these symbols. They're not just carved, they're somehow alive in the crystal structure itself." Alex kept his rifle ready, eyes constantly scanning for threats. "Captain, I don't like this. These ruins feel like they're watching us." Sarah felt it too, a strange sensation like invisible eyes following their every move. But the scientific value of this discovery was too great to ignore. "Dr. Webb, can you determine what this place was used for?" "Based on the layout and energy patterns, I believe this was some kind of ceremonial center. See how the spires are arranged in specific geometric patterns. And these symbols, they seem to be warnings of some kind." "Warnings about what?" Sarah asked, though she wasn't sure she wanted to know the answer. Before Dr. Webb could respond, the ground beneath their feet began to vibrate. The crystalline spires started glowing brighter, and a low humming sound filled the air. Suddenly, a section of the nearest wall slid open with a sound like breaking glass. "Captain, we should leave," Alex said, raising his weapon toward the opening. "This feels like a trap." But Dr. Webb was already moving toward the entrance, his scientific curiosity overriding his caution. "This is amazing. The structure is responding to our presence. It's some kind of automated system." Sarah followed him into the dark corridor, her portable lights revealing walls covered in more of the shifting symbols. The passage led downward into the heart of the complex, where they found a vast chamber dominated by a massive crystalline construct in the center. "It's some kind of machine," Dr. Webb said, his voice filled with wonder. "But unlike anything in our technology database, the energy readings are off the charts. As he spoke, the machine began to activate. Lights raced along its crystalline surfaces, and holographic displays flickered to life around the chamber. Suddenly, a voice filled the air, speaking in a language none of them recognized. But somehow, they understood every word. Intruders detected. Scanning biological signatures. Species classification. Unknown. Warning. Unauthorized access to sacred Dominion technology detected. This constitutes an act of war against the Dominion Empire. Sarah felt her blood turn cold. Dr. Webb, step away from that thing. Now. But it was too late. The machine had finished its scan, and more holograms appeared showing star maps, fleet movements, and what looked like battle plans. The voice continued, now with a tone of growing alarm. Alert! Previously unknown sapient species has violated sacred space. Emergency protocols activated. Warfleet Command has been notified. Estimated arrival time: 72 standard cycles. All Dominion forces will converge on species' homeworld for immediate extermination. The chamber filled with blinding light as the machine transmitted its message across the galaxy. When their vision cleared, the ancient device had gone dark. But the damage was done. Somewhere in space, an alien empire had just declared war on humanity. Captain, we need to leave. Right now, Alex said, grabbing Dr. Webb's arm and pulling him toward the exit. They ran through the corridors as alarms began sounding throughout the complex. The very walls seemed to be waking up after thousands of years of sleep, and Sarah had the terrible feeling that they had just triggered something that should have stayed buried forever. Back on the horizon's edge, Zoe was frantically working at her station when they burst onto the bridge. Captain, I'm picking up massive energy transmissions from the planet. Something just sent a signal across half the galaxy. Plot a course for Earth, maximum speed, Sarah ordered, still breathing hard from their run to the shuttle. And send an emergency message to Fleet Command. Tell them we may have accidentally started a war. As the horizon's edge jumped to hyperspace, leaving Sirian 7 behind, none of them could have imagined what was already beginning to move in the depths of space. The Dominion Empire had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years, crushing anyone who dared to challenge their authority. They had exterminated dozens of species without mercy, and their war fleets were the most feared force in known space. But they had never encountered humans before. The message reached the Dominion homeworld within hours, transmitted through their ancient network of crystalline relay stations. Supreme War Commander Thex Ali received the report in his command chamber, a massive hall carved from living rock deep beneath the planet's surface. The alien stood nearly 10 feet tall, his 4 arms ending in razor-sharp claws, his scaled hide bearing the scars of 1,000 battles. An unknown species has violated our sacred sites, he hissed, his serpentine head swaying as he studied the data. Show me these creatures. The holographic display showed images captured by the ancient scanner, humans in their exploration suits, touching Dominion technology with their small, soft hands. Thex Ali's yellow eyes narrowed with contempt. Pathetic. They appear weak, with no natural weapons or armor. How many worlds do they control? Only one. Supreme Commander reported his aide, a smaller version of the same reptilian species. Their homeworld designation is Earth. Population approximately 8 billion. 8 billion. Thex Ali laughed, a sound like grinding stone. The entire species lives on a single world. This will be easier than I thought. Dispatch the Third War Fleet. 100 vessels should be more than sufficient to cleanse this infestation. As the Dominion war machine began to mobilize, Captain Sarah Chen was trying to explain to Earth's military leaders how a routine archaeological mission had just brought down the wrath of a galactic empire upon humanity. You're telling us that by landing on one planet, we've declared war on an empire that spans half the galaxy? Admiral Harrison asked, his weathered face pale with shock. The machine called it a violation of sacred space, Sarah replied. Based on the star maps we saw, the Dominion controls hundreds of worlds. Their technology is thousands of years ahead of ours. "How long do we have?" asked General Morrison, Earth's top military strategist. Dr. Webb consulted his notes. The machine said 72 standard cycles. Based on their calendar system, that's approximately 6 months. 6 months to prepare for a war against an enemy they knew nothing about. An enemy that had crushed dozens of civilizations and considered humanity nothing more than insects to be eliminated. But they didn't know humans very well yet. In research facilities around the world, scientists began analyzing every scrap of data from Sirian-7. In shipyards and factories, engineers started working around the clock to build new weapons and defenses. And in military command centers, strategists began planning not just how to survive the coming storm. The war begins. 6 months had passed since the discovery on Sirian-7, and Earth looked nothing like the peaceful world it had been. Orbital shipyards worked around the clock, their welding torches creating new constellations in the night sky. Every nation had contributed to the war effort, setting aside old rivalries to face an enemy that threatened all of humanity. Captain Sarah Chen stood in the command center of the newly constructed Earth Defense Station, watching the tactical displays with growing tension. The station hung in space between Earth and the Moon, bristling with weapons that had been designed and built in record time. Around her, the best military minds from every country worked together, unified by the knowledge that they were fighting for the survival of their species. "Captain, long-range sensors are detecting the Dominion fleet," reported Lieutenant Commander Rivera, now serving as tactical coordinator for the entire defense network. 100 vessels, just as predicted. They'll reach the outer system in 3 hours. Sarah nodded, though her stomach churned with anxiety. The approaching fleet was larger than anything humanity had ever faced. Each Dominion ship was the size of a city, armed with weapons that could crack planets. According to the data they had gathered, the Dominion had never lost a war in 10,000 years. "All stations, this is command." Sarah spoke into her headset. "Execute Plan Trojan." Repeat. "Execute Plan Trojan." Throughout the solar system, seemingly defenseless cargo ships and mining vessels began moving into position. To the approaching Dominion fleet, they would look like civilians trying to evacuate. But hidden within their hulls were some of the most dangerous weapons humanity had ever created. Dr. Webb, now serving as Xenotechnology advisor, looked up from his station. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the Dominion flagship." "Put it through." The main screen flickered to life, showing Supreme War Commander Thexeli in all his terrifying glory. The alien's 4 arms were spread wide in a gesture of dominance, his scaled hide gleaming under the lights of his command chamber. "Humans of Earth," the alien's voice hissed through the speakers, "I am Supreme War Commander Thexeli of the Dominion Empire. You have committed an unforgivable crime by violating our sacred sites. Your species will now face the consequences of your actions." Sarah stepped forward, her chin raised defiantly. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Force. We meant no harm by our exploration. We're willing to negotiate." Thexeli's laugh was like the sound of breaking glass. "Negotiate? You are insects compared to the might of the Dominion. We have crushed civilizations far more advanced than yours. The Kilari Empire had technology that could manipulate gravity itself. The Nexus Collective possessed fleets of AI-controlled warships. All fell before our might. And yet here you are, talking instead of fighting." Sarah replied calmly, "Maybe you're not as confident as you pretend to be." The alien's yellow eyes flashed with rage. "You dare mock the Dominion? I will enjoy watching your pathetic world burn. You have 10 minutes to surrender unconditionally, or we will demonstrate why the galaxy fears us." The transmission ended, leaving the command center in tense silence. Sarah looked around at her team, seeing determination mixed with fear in their faces. They all knew the odds, but they also knew there was no other choice. "Engineering, are our surprises ready?" Sarah asked. Zoe Park's voice crackled through the speakers from her position in the engineering bay. "All systems green, Captain. The Dominion is about to learn that humans don't fight fair. The first attack came exactly 10 minutes later. Dominion ships opened fire with energy weapons that could melt through armor like butter. But instead of hitting Earth's defenses, the beams struck empty space where holographic projectors created the illusion of military stations. The real defense platforms were hidden behind stealth fields, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Now, Sarah shouted. The trap was sprung. Hundreds of modified cargo ships revealed their true nature, launching swarms of small fighters that had been hidden in their holds. Each fighter was piloted by a volunteer who knew they might not come home, but they also knew they were buying time for their families, their friends, their entire species. The Dominion ships tried to adjust their tactics, but the human fighters moved like nothing they had encountered before. Instead of flying in formation, they scattered in all directions, using asteroids and space debris as cover. They struck fast and hard, targeting specific systems before disappearing into the void. Impossible, Thexaeli hissed as he watched his fleet's reports. How are they coordinating without central command? As the Dominion fleet limped away into the darkness, humanity began to understand that they had just changed everything. They were no longer alone in the universe, and they were no longer unknown. Word would spread across the galaxy about the species that had defeated the Dominion, the creatures that fought with courage, creativity, and an absolute refusal to surrender. In the years that followed, other species would come to test themselves against humanity. Some came as enemies, others as allies, and a few came simply to understand how a single world could produce such dangerous survivors. But they all learned the same lesson. Never declare war on humanity unless you're prepared to face the most unpredictable, creative, and stubborn species the galaxy has ever produced. Because humans don't just fight to win. They fight to survive, to protect what they love, and to prove that being small doesn't mean being weak. And that, as the Dominion Empire learned too late, makes them the most dangerous species in the galaxy. His aide consulted the tactical displays. They appear to be using distributed command protocols. Supreme Commander. Each unit operates independently while maintaining communication with the others. That's chaos, not strategy. Thexaeli growled. No disciplined force can function that way. But the humans weren't trying to fight like a disciplined force. They were fighting like what they had always been. Survivors, innovators, and problem solvers who refused to accept defeat. The real surprise came when the human fighters began ramming Dominion ships, not in desperate suicide attacks, but with precision strikes that disabled crucial systems. The fighters were equipped with new technology that allowed the pilots to evacuate at the last second, teleporting them to safety while their unmanned craft continued their mission. Captain, the Dominion is falling back to regroup, Rivera reported. We've disabled 23 of their ships. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. Phase 2. Launch the Nomad fleet. This was the plan that had taken months to develop. Instead of trying to match the Dominion's firepower, humanity would use mobility and unpredictability. Hundreds of small ships, each carrying a handful of crew members, spread throughout the solar system like a swarm of angry bees. The Dominion tried to respond with their traditional tactics, using their massive ships to project overwhelming force. But every time they concentrated their firepower on one target, 10 more attacks would come from unexpected directions. The humans had turned the entire solar system into a maze of hidden bases, mobile weapons platforms, and improvised defenses. This is madness. Thexaeli raged as more reports came in. They're not following any recognized patterns of warfare. Perhaps that's the point. Supreme Commander, his aide suggested carefully. They appear to be fighting an entirely different kind of war. The turning point came when Dr. Webb's analysis of Dominion technology finally paid off. The ancient aliens had built their ships to be powerful and intimidating, but they had also made them predictable. Their weapons followed standard patterns, their shields operated on known frequencies, and their computers used logical, hierarchical decision-making processes. Human computers didn't work that way. Execute Protocol Chaos, Sarah ordered. Throughout the human fleet, AI systems began doing what they did best. being unpredictable. They generated random attack patterns, created false sensor readings, and turned the Dominion's own logical processes against them. Every time the aliens tried to predict human behavior, the computers would do something completely different. The Dominion ships began making mistakes. They fired at targets that weren't there, left themselves open to attacks they couldn't anticipate, and found their own weapons systems turning against them as human hackers infiltrated their networks. Retreat, Thexeli finally ordered, his voice shaking with rage and disbelief. Fall back to the outer system and regroup. But Sarah wasn't about to let them escape. All units, pursue and harass. Don't let them rest. Don't let them think. Don't let them plan. Keep them running. The chase continued for hours, with human forces nipping at the heels of the Dominion fleet like wolves hunting a wounded animal. The aliens tried to establish defensive positions, but every time they stopped, the humans would find new ways to attack them. Finally, with his fleet in shambles and his crew demoralized, Thexeli did something no Dominion commander had done in 1,000 years. He requested the ceasefire. "This is Supreme War Commander Thexeli." His voice came through the speakers, much less confident than before. We wish to discuss terms." Sarah looked around the command center, seeing exhausted but triumphant faces. They had done it. They had defeated an empire that had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. "This is Captain Chen," she replied. "We're listening." "Your species fights like nothing we have encountered," Thexeli admitted. "The Dominion has conquered hundreds of worlds, but we have never faced an enemy that refused to follow the rules of war." "Maybe that's because we wrote our own rules," Sarah said. "Here's what's going to happen. Your fleet will withdraw from our system and never return. In exchange, we won't follow you home and show the rest of the galaxy that the mighty Dominion Empire can be defeated by a single planet species." The silence stretched for long minutes before Thexeli responded. "Agreed. But know this, humans, the galaxy will hear of what happened here. Some will fear you for what you have done. Others will seek to test themselves against you." "Let them come," Sarah replied. "We'll be ready."